Coming up, the top athletes from all across the area converged on Sioux Falls and the Howard Wood Dakota Relays last weekend. We've got a full recap of the 91st edition of that event.
The regular season is rounding out for high school baseball and softball teams. Find out where your school stands in my latest power rankings.
All that, plus a look at what lies ahead in our spring sports forecast. Varsity Sports starts right now. And hello and welcome to Varsity Sports alongside the one and only Jason Andera. I am Jay Elson. Well, if you enjoy track and field, Jason, it does not get a whole lot better than the Howard Wood Dakota Relays.
Yeah, you're right. Each May, the top athletes from across the region converge on Sioux Falls, and for some, it's the best competition they'll see all season long.
There were a number of highlights during the 91st edition of that event, including a couple of truly special events. And for more on those, let's send it over to Alex Heinert.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Well, it goes without saying, but the Dakota Relays special events are always two of the most anticipated races of the high school track season in the upper Midwest. The invitation-only specials bring together the rare combination of top runners from each class in South Dakota, plus the best of the best in the surrounding states. And that is usually a recipe for great competition and record-breaking performances. And once again, this past Friday night at Howard Wood Field, the special events provided both. First up, the boys' special 800 meters. A great field assembled, including Seth Eliason of Hopkins, Josh Gehring of Roosevelt, Tegan Linder of O'Gorman, and a number of other outstanding half-milers. But no Lucas Trapp from Elk River, the top seed and defending Minnesota 2A 800 champ. Trapp had to withdraw from the meet on Friday morning after picking up an injury during the week, so enter Sioux Falls, Washington's Alex Durr, who steps in to complete the field. To the race now, where multiple runners would hold the lead in this one, beginning with Logan Hansen of Viborg Hurley, the 2015 Class B state 800-meter champ. Hansen would lead the queue down the backstretch, but he'd be displaced right here by fellow junior and defending Class A 800 champ Luke Julian of St. Thomas More. Julian, who also won the mile at state last year, would stay at the front of the tightly bunched pack through the home stretch of the first lap, going through around the 56-second mark. As the chase pack gets stretched, it looked like Julian might try to pull away, but Josh Gehring would be having none of it. The Rough Rider senior would turn it up to track down Julian and eventually move into the front at the 200-meter mark. Gehring, who was third in the 800 at the AA state meet a year ago, would proceed to stretch out his lead. O'Gorman's Tegan Linder and Hopkins Seth Eliason would give chase, but no one was catching Josh Gehring on this night. The future South Dakota State Jackrabbit does not break stride on the home stretch to cruise to the win in a new PR of 153.34, nearly a second ahead of Eliason at 154.18 and Linder at 154.29. Let's go to the full leaderboard now. Every athlete runs under 158, with 6 going under 156. Great run from the alternate Alex Durr, who takes 4th place, while legacy sophomore Bo Brannon earns 5th, and Viborg Hurley's Logan Hansen right there in the 6th spot. Great times all around, but it's Gehring who steals the show. Here's what our champion had to say about the win.
It was just so much excitement. I was looking forward to this moment for like all of high school, so it really means a lot to me to come out here and race my best.
A half hour later, the girls' special 200 would take center stage. All eyes were on Minnesota's 200-meter record holder Jada Caldwell of Chanhassen in lane 4, who earlier in the day had set a new Dakota Relays record in the prelims of the 100 with an 11.71 second clocking. She'd face off against Pierce Courtney Dowling, Brandon Valley's Krista Bickley, Bismarck's Cara Hausler, and a number of other top sprinters in the Dakotas. Right from the gun, though, it was evident that Caldwell was on a different level on this night. The Chan senior makes up the stagger almost immediately and then proceeds to widen the gap on the field. Dowling would keep pace on the home stretch, but this became more of a race against history than anything for Caldwell. With the old Dakota Relays record of 24.27 in her sights, Caldwell crosses in a ridiculous 23.59 second mark, breaking her own Minnesota all-time record by over 0.3 of a second. Dowling would not be too far behind at 24.37. That's the third best effort all time in South Dakota, with Bickley in at 24.8 in the third spot. The rest of the final results had Hostler, Shayla Howell of Belfouche, and Hannah Young of Rapid City Central all within 11/100ths of each other in 4th, 5th, and 6th. Just like in the boys 800, from 1 to 8, each athlete puts up a great time, all under 26 seconds in this case. It's Jada Caldwell, though, with a special run that the Dakota Relays will not soon forget.
I was honestly not expecting this. There's great competition in the 200, so I'm just really excited with my progress. Right off the curve, actually, that's when I started to kick it in, so I felt really good. I was like, might as well just keep going, finish through this finish line.
Thanks, Alex. Well, we've seen the specials, but there is plenty more to come. We'll take you through the rest of the highlights from those 91st Dakota Relays right after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
And welcome back. The conditions were fantastic for this year's Dakota Relays, and anytime you get good weather, the record book starts to sweat.
Yeah, well, there are a number of new standards set over the weekend. Here's Alex to fill us in on the rest of the best.
Yeah, like you said, boys, you couldn't ask for a better weekend than the one we had at the Howard Wood Dakota Relays. Sioux Falls gave us 2 days of essentially perfect track weather, a rarity that wasn't lost on those who have attended the meet over the years, as well as the 3,000 plus athletes. They responded in record-setting fashion. One of those record setters was Kiana Phelps of Kingsley Pearson Woodbury Central. The University of Oregon commit would win the girls' shot put by 3 feet on Friday night with a toss of 47 feet 1 3/4 inches. But the discus is really her specialty, and she'd show us why on Saturday afternoon. Phelps cranks out an all-time Dakota Relays record throw of 163 feet 5 inches to win the competition by nearly 30 feet. That's just ridiculous. In the jumps, it was a good weekend for the North Dakota contingent. Grand Forks Red River's Devon Pope would go platinum with a 45 feet 5 3/4 inch effort to win the triple jump over a great field. While on the girls' side, Watford City's Ricky Lindley would win her second straight Dakota Relays triple jump crown with a great effort of 37 feet 4 1/4 inches. 2 more platinum marks would go down at the pole vault as Mitchell's Tevin Waddell would clear 11 feet 6 to win the event, and Cy Watertown's Whitney Scott for the best mark in the Dakotas this season. The next day, it was Brandon Valley's Cole Christensen's turn as he goes over the bar at 15-1, becoming just the 10th high school vaulter in South Dakota history to go higher than 15 feet. And yes, that does deserve a hug. Nice job, Cole. On the track, we had a good battle all weekend between North Dakota distance greats Sam Klosnitzer of Bismarck and Ryan Wheeling of Newtown. The two would finish 1-2 in the 3,200 on Friday night, with Klosnitzer getting the nod in a solid run of 9 minutes, 16.88 seconds. Saturday morning, another loaded field in the mile this time. Wheeling would return the favor, out-kicking Klosnitzer and Sioux Falls Christian great Caleb DeWeird for the victory in a new platinum mark of 4:17 flat. Incredibly, we had an even better finish in the girls' 1600. With 50 meters to go, it looks like Kendra Dykstra of Stevens has just enough to get by Jasmine Cooper of Lincoln, but just like we saw at the state meet a year ago, Cooper would turn it up when she needs to, edging Dykstra across the line by 900ths to get the win, and that 4:58.18, by the way, a new platinum time as well. Speaking of platinum, Paul of Harrisburg was the platinum leader in the 400 meters prior to the weekend, and he would only take that time lower on Saturday, getting the win in 48.74 seconds. A win at the Wood is impressive for a senior like Paul, but how much more so for a 7th grader? Enter Kaylin Valandra of Todd County, who crushes the field in the girls 400 with a 57.29 clocking. That's the best time by far in Class A this season. Not a bad start for someone with another year of middle school left. To the hurdles, or as we call it, Bryce Malsum territory. The Edmond Central senior would take the 300 meters in a platinum-worthy time of 39.23 seconds. Malsum would just miss the hurdle double after finishing 3rd in the 110s later in the day. That leaves Elizabeth Schaefer of Stevens as the most likely candidate to pull off that feat. The freshman would win the 300s in platinum fashion at 44.65 seconds, but she would get pushed to the limit in the 100s just 2 hours later by St. Thomas More's Shannon Duffy. Watch this finish. My goodness, almost too close to call, but the win goes to Schaefer by 1/100th. Incredible. In the boys' 100s, keep your eyes on Watertown's Mason Herricks in lane 3. The Aero senior goes 10.76 to add the 100 title to earlier wins in the 4x1 and the 4x2. And speaking of relays, let's fast forward now to meets end and the 4x4s. One of the last of the 19 meet records broken went down in dramatic fashion in girls AA. With Lincoln in front and Jasmine Cooper on the anchor carry, Brandon Valley's Krista Bickley would run, get this, a 54.7 second split to track down Cooper and lift the Lynx to the top of the podium in a record time of 3:53.35. As you saw in the highlights, platinum marks were dropping all over Howard Wood Field, but the Dakota Relays did not corner the market on great track this weekend. Let's go to the platinum leaderboard for the full update, starting with the girls' field events. The Packer Relays in West Fargo Friday produced a couple of platinum record-setting marks as Akili Moulton throws 47.4 on her home track to eclipse her old platinum record of 47 feet 1 inch from last year. And if you think that's impressive, which it is, look at Kylie Bergentine of Davies in the triple jump, who goes 38 feet 10 1/4 to shatter the old platinum mark of 37 feet 6 1/4 from a year ago. Kylie's mark number 2 all-time in North Dakota. That's incredible stuff. On the track side, you cannot say enough about Courtney Dowling, who now owns half of these top times after this past week. That's unprecedented territory for one athlete to hold 4 different platinum titles at once. Everybody, please enjoy the last month of Courtney Dowling's high school career. Watch it, friends. Drink it in. To the boys' field, we already saw Devon Pope and Cole Christensen crack this list for the first time this year with big marks at the Dakota Relays. Just those changes to tell you about there, but plenty on the track. 5 of 8 marks getting lowered over the weekends. Paul and Bryce Malsom lower their times in the 400 and in both hurdle events, while Josh Gearing and Alan Heinert favorite Ryan Wheeling slide into the top spot in the 8 and in the mile.
We haven't heard a lot from Alan Heinert this spring.
I hope we do very soon, and I know North Dakota does.
Maybe soon. All right, good stuff, Alex. Thank you for that. A ton of incredible performances for sure, but where does this year rank among recent runnings of those Howard Wood Dakota Relays? Alex is going to answer that and more when we step inside the acceleration zone next.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
Welcome back. Well, back again is Alex Heinert to go a little deeper into what we saw from this weekend at the 91st Howard Wood Dakota Relays and beyond in this week's Acceleration Zone. Alex, what time are we focused on this week?
Well, let's make it simple. The time we're all buzzing about is the 23.59 second 200 that Jada Caldwell ran on Friday night. Obviously, that is far too short for all we need to talk about, so let's do 8 of those for a time total of 3:11.52.
That works for me. By the way, she was flying on Friday night. The gun is up, and here we go. I think we all agree that this year's Dakota Relays special events were special, but exactly how special were they?
Well, like you said, I think everybody who was there Friday night knew something unique was happening on the track. Obviously, nobody had seen a female high school athlete run a 200 like that at Howard Wood ever, and Josh Gearing's 800 time was the 4th best all-time in South Dakota. But what really made those races special was just how strong both fields were from top to bottom. 2014 was the last time we had this combination of special events, and back then 155.8 won the boys 800, and only 3 runners were under 157. This year, our winner was over 2 seconds faster, and 7 of the 8 ran under 157. Also in the girls 200 2 years ago, only Courtney Dowling, Macy Denzer, and Elena Clapper's 3 greats were under 26 seconds, while this year all 8 in the field broke that barrier. Wow. 6th place this year would have been good enough for seconds back in 2014. I don't want to have too much recency bias, but this really was one of the best pair of specials we've ever had.
I agree. High praise. Is there a year that stands up to this one? That's a fair question.
Yeah, and the best like-for-like comparison that I could find to this year was back in 2009. The boys Special 8 had every runner under 158 with the winner, Alex Muntefring of Parkston, setting the meet record at 152.46. In the girls 200 that year, we had 6 runners under 26 seconds, 2 all-time greats in Laura Noah Raisler of Fargo South, Jasmine Cooper of Rapid City Central, Jasmine King of Rapid City Central, both under 25. Raisler, who became a national champ in Oregon, ran 24.55, while Caldwell this year ran almost a second faster, and Dowling would have beaten her by 0.2. That just goes to show how good our field was this year.
Absolutely. All right. Well, in the other individual events now, what stood out to you most from this year's relays?
Well, first off, I think this was another year in which it was really tough to win multiple events on the individual side. Only 3 kids were on the podium more than once, which is actually the same number that we had last year. And of that group, only one, hurdling phenom Elizabeth Schaefer from Stevens, was from the Dakotas. Kiana Phelps from KPWC in Iowa swept the throws. Isaiah Weston from St. Michael Albertville in Minnesota won the long jump and the 110s. This meet just continues to bring in the top kids from outside the Dakota territory, and the competition's only gonna help our in-state athletes just get better and better. Second, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but coaches are being extremely careful with how they're handling their athletes coming back from injury. Luke Strapp playing it safe, didn't run in the Special 800. Macy Hines withdrawing from the Special 200 a week prior to the meet as a precaution, and then pulling out at the last minute from the mile. Courtney Dowling looking awesome on Friday in the prelims and semis of the 100, rocking the Special 200, but then not running in finals on Saturday. It just seems like the theme here, there's no sense in pushing an athlete too hard in early May and then not having them for the meet that really matters at the end of the month.
The reason that really matters is because you're trying to get a team championship. So, with that thing considered, which teams do you think had the best weekend? And obviously, team points don't factor in here,
right?
But just overall.
Well, I was really impressed quickly here with St. Thomas More's girls and boys. I thought they both were fantastic, winning the 4x1, the 4x2, and the medley in Class A. They had a lot of impressive individual finishers as well. Watertown's boys won 2 sprint relays and really impressed me in AA. Brandon Valley and Sioux Falls Lincoln's girls were at their usual best. That plot just continues to thicken in AA. While in Class B, Chester's girls and boys each showed really well. I think we can all expect multiple team races to come down to the wire at the state meet in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Well, you didn't make the time, but I'm going to take some of the heat for that. If I could spit out my question a little quicker, you might have made it. So apologize. But good stuff overall. Thanks for that, Alex. All right, stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to shift our attention to the Diamond, the regular season winding down for high school baseball and softball programs in our area. Find out where Jason thinks your team stands as they head toward the postseason.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
The postseason is officially underway for some baseball teams in our region. The rest, along with softball in North Dakota, are going to be getting going within the next couple of weeks. So as we start that drive toward the championships, Jason, let's take a look at how some of this year's contenders are stacking up right now in the latest edition of your power rankings. Let's start in North Dakota baseball in Class A. It's really starting to look like a 3-horse race here.
You know, we knew the WDA had some really good teams, and now that we're this far into the season, I'm sold. They've got the top 3 teams in the state right now, and they play each other a lot. Dickinson just got done with a split against Century. Century just got done with a split against Bismarck. These 3 teams are very, very even, and they've got very deep pitching staffs. That's one of the reasons why. But I've got Dickinson still hanging on to that number 1 spot. Only 4 losses on the season. That was the only distinguishing mark why I have them up in the top 5. And then you see a couple teams in the EDC as well rounding out the top 5.
Let's check it on Class B now. Beulah at number 1.
Yeah, I had Thompson up there because they were undefeated, suffered their first loss against Grafton, a really good team that's just outside my top 5. And Beulah also added another loss, but they got a split with Shiloh Christian, another top 5 team. So again, a very thin margin right there at the top. Carrington probably has a stake at maybe making an argument to be the top team in the class. And the rest of them, as you see, a lot of good teams in this class, and there's even a few off this list that I think will make a playoff push.
Moving into South Dakota now in Class A. Brookings took over the number 1 spot last week after their win over Lincoln, but
they didn't last long with that big high. They lost the game that very next day to Watertown, but still, 22-2 on the season. That's an elite record. I know Lincoln is just behind them, and honestly, if these 2 teams play, I think we're going to end up with a dynamite finish no matter which team is ranked 1 and 2 right now. But I think Brookings deserves that number 1 ranking because they played so many games.
They have.
And only lost 2 games throughout the season. That is a huge feat in itself. Lincoln hanging on. They have had a couple games postponed because of weather. Going to try to get one in against Washington on Thursday. They're going to have a very tough game against Washington because Washington has their aces rested. So Washington, a very good team when they have Olmsted and Bertram going on the mound. So that will be closer than you probably think, but they belong in that top 5. And Brandon Valley, with their first appearance in my top 5 all year, they're finally getting healthy. Peyton Livingston shut down Watertown with a no-hitter earlier last week, and getting some pitching back with Mitchell Hoover healthy at the right time. They're a team to watch.
Winter Cologne, undefeated in Class B. They are at number 1 this week.
The only undefeated team. They belong at number 1. They've done a good job to stay there. The rest of the field, you see West Central for the first time getting into the top 5. They're a team. I think they're a title contender. They're going to get everything together going here during the playoffs. Look for them to make a push.
Quick thoughts on North Dakota softball?
Yeah, West Fargo has 3 losses on their mark, all out of state, still belong at number 1. They've got 2 tough games series coming up later this week. They'll be challenged, but right now West Fargo by far the best team in softball.
Fun time of year getting set to get into the postseason for baseball and softball. Well, stay tuned. The next 7 days is going to be littered with some big time events. We'll wrap things up with a look at your spring sports forecast after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
Lots of good stuff coming up over the next 7 days in the Dakotas, Jason. But what stood out enough to earn a spot on our weekly planner?
This is an elite list. It takes something to get on this because there's so many good events coming up over the next week. But you see the first one, Lincoln taking on Washington. Lincoln definitely favored in that game, but like I said, Washington's pitching is rested. I would expect a close game there. The big track meet this week, the ESD meet in Harrisburg. You see the baseball playoffs get underway in Class B in South Dakota this week. So most of those regular seasons are all done, ready for the playoffs. You see 2 North Dakota softballs, and both feature the Packers with a chance to sweep at Century. Then they visit Shanley, the other contender in the EDC right now. So those 2 games are ones to watch for. And then baseball, the best team in South Dakota right now, the Brookings Bobcats, host Aberdeen, another top 5 team. They had a huge schedule last week, just a marathon of games, and they're coming out and going to try to finish the season strong. Always get a lot of games. And then Bismarck Dickinson, we talked about those top 3 teams in the WEDA all playing each other. This finishes out that trifecta with a game coming up later this week where Dickinson has to play a really elite team in that league.
All right, look forward to some good stuff. Look forward to helping recap that all next week here on Varsity Sports. That is our time for this week. For Alex Heinert and Jason Andera, I am Jay Elson.